Okay, so in this short video we're going to look at the division of one complex number by another one. So we've got z1 and z2 defined here, and we've been asked to calculate the value of z1 divided by z2. So let's just write that out. Let's write out z1 divided by z2. So our complex numbers are 1 plus 2j for z1, so we're going to have 1 plus 2j in the numerator, and in the denominator we've got minus 3 plus j. Now, to do the division of complex numbers, we have to understand the idea of the complex conjugate. So if we take z1, which is 1 plus 2j, the complex conjugate of z1, which I will denote by z1 star. Some people might use z1 bar, but I'm going to use z1 star. The complex conjugate would be 1 minus 2j. So to find the complex conjugate, all we do is change the sign in front of the imaginary term. So for z1 it was 1 plus 2j, so its conjugate would be 1 minus 2j. If I were to pick another number, let's say z3, which was 2 minus 5j, well, its complex conjugate would be 2. I change the sign in front of the imaginary term, so instead of minus it would be plus 5j. So if we're happy with that idea, we can now do the division. To actually perform the division of z1 over z2, I need to multiply top and bottom by the complex conjugate of the denominator. So let's have a look at our denominator. We've got minus 3 plus j. So its complex conjugate just requires us to change the sign in front of the imaginary term. So instead of having plus j, I'm going to have minus j. So my complex conjugate of z2 will be minus 3 minus j. So I multiply the bottom by that, I need to multiply the top by the same thing. Once we've done that, we just need to multiply out the numerator and the denominator and then see what answer we get. So let's start off with the denominator. Let's see what happens when we multiply a complex number by its conjugate. So we're going to have minus 3 plus j, and then minus 3 minus j. Now you should recall from an earlier video how we multiply out two complex numbers, but we'll go through it again. Every term in the first bracket has to multiply every term in the second bracket. So what we're going to have minus 3 multiplied by minus 3, so that will give us a plus 9. We'll have a minus 3 multiplying minus j, so minus 3 minus j, well, minus minus will give us a plus, so we'll get plus 3j. We'll have j times by minus 3, so that'll be a minus 3j. And then we'll have j times minus j, which will give us a minus j squared. So a few things to note. We have 3j minus 3j, so you can see they cancel each other out. So we have no imaginary term here and here. J squared, if you recall, the definition of j is the square root of minus 1. So j squared will give us minus 1. So what have we got left? We've got 9. These imaginary terms are cancelled out, and then we've got minus, and then j squared is minus 1. So we've got 9 minus minus 1, which is 10. So what can we see when we multiply a complex number by its conjugate? We end up with a real answer. There's no imaginary part. So that's our denominator. So all over 10. Now we need to multiply out our numerator. So we're going to have 1 plus 2j multiplying by minus 3 minus j. And as we did before, we only need to multiply out the two brackets. So let's see what we get. We're going to have 1 times minus 3, so that's minus 3. I have 1 times minus j, so that's minus j. I have 2j times by minus 3, so 2 times minus 3 is minus 6, so I'm going to get minus 6j. And then finally I have 2j multiplying by minus j, so that will give me minus 2j squared. Before we continue, let's just recall what j squared is equal to. J squared is minus 1. I'm going to have minus 3, and then I'm going to have minus 2 lots of minus 1, and then minus j minus 6j give me minus 7j. So let's have a look here. Minus 2 times minus 1 gives me plus 2. I have minus 3 plus 2 is minus 1, and we have a minus 7j. And that's our numerator. So we put that in at the top. We have minus 1 minus 7j. And that's how we divide z1 by z2. Now you could leave it in this form. You could write it ever so slightly differently. You could write it as minus 1 over 10 minus 7j over 10. Both are equally correct. It's up to you which way you leave it. Thank you for watching.